Hey everybody, welcome to the Herd Fit Podcast with Dr. Sam Marie and myself, Coach David Syvertson. This podcast is aimed at helping anyone and everyone looking to enhance their healthy lifestyle through fitness, nutrition, and most importantly, mindset. All right, welcome back to the Herd Fit Podcast. I am Coach David Syvertson. I have two very special guests here today, a podcast that I personally, for selfish reasons, to be honest with you, have been looking forward to as much as any podcast I have in the dock right now, in the queue, I should say. In the middle, I have Scott Rossen, and all the way to the end, I have Mike McKinney. And A, thank you guys for your time here on a Friday morning. B, thank you again for talking about something that is a little, I would say, on the heavy side, personal side, difficult to talk about side. And I'm going to let these guys share their story. From my perspective as a friend and coach to both these guys, they've been through something that most of us have never been through, and they have a very unique perspective on health, fitness, CrossFit, life in general, that I think we can all get a lot out of. And I'm going to let them share their story. But real quick, before we get into that specific story, Scott, can you just kind of briefly touch on, your history of fitness, health, your CrossFit start story, so our audience can get a proper gauge on who they're listening to?
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's funny to be this side of the pod as opposed to listening to it while I'm walking the dog. So it's good to be here. So I'm a student athlete. Growing up in the UK, I in particular played football, soccer, all my life really, until I kind of came here and it slowed down a little bit. So I was a soccer athlete for most of my life. Moved here when my son was about almost 2 years old. So I've got one son. We moved when he was almost 2. I was 40 at the time. I'd been, over the years, I'd been to gyms and, I'd worked out. I'd had private trainers, and I never enjoyed the gym. I never really enjoyed working out. Let's put it. I love playing football, soccer, but I never really enjoyed working out. And then I moved here, and I was looking for something different, and I kind of stumbled across Bison, and the rest, as they say, is history. And that was about 9 years ago.
9 years ago. Wow, yeah. Time flies. It's crazy when we have these conversations, how long as a coach and as a friend I've known some of these people that have come to this gym, and just watching kids grow up, graduate high school, go to college. And I remember them being little kids in the gym, running around, kind of where my son's at right now, age-wise. Right. So it's crazy. Yeah. It's been 9 years. Yeah,
it has. And it's been a journey.
Yep, it has. And we're not done. Hey, Mike's been on the Herd Fit podcast a couple times, reflecting on his Legends competition a couple of years ago. I think we had you on. Was that the only time you've been on, Mike, or did we have you on for an open workout? Yeah. So Mike reflected. I've been in Arizona with Mike competing at Legends. That was a couple of years ago. That was one of Mike's big time, first competitions. And it kind of, we go back a few years. Mike has been on a really quick ascent since he started CrossFit. I still remember to this day, Coach Liz texted me and be like, yo, there's this new guy, Mike, and he crushed strict handstand push-ups. It was a handstand push-up run workout, and that was his introduction. But Mike, touch on your background a little bit, health, fitness, CrossFit start story.
Yeah. I grew up playing sports, but my main sport growing up was the American football, not the European football, Scott. But I did play soccer. Played soccer and football growing up. Those were my two main sports. Was more natural at football. Played football at Wheaton College in the Chicago area. And that's kind of where I really took off in terms of got used to weightlifting, Olympic lifting, squats, bench press, all that kind of stuff. But then after that, when Karen and I, my wife and I, we met at Wheaton College. She played soccer there. So we were always relatively active. But after I had graduated, I never worked out pretty seriously ever since graduating. And we'd always known about CrossFit, and it was always something we had talked about. And obviously we went through the COVID thing, and we were doing the Peloton bike, which was so depressing. And then when we came out of COVID, and actually it was former members that many people know at the gym know, Ryan and Nicole Radcliffe. They were actually going to our church that I pastor at, church at Bergen. And when they were moving to Texas, we had them over, and just as a gift, they helped us get our first few months into the gym, and that was May 2021. And as Scott said, I mean, it was like we were hooked immediately. I mean, it was like full blown Kool-Aid, drank it, and we were in, man. We were in, and so it's been about a little over 4 years now. I can't believe 4 years at Bison, and we've loved it. It's been great.
Yeah, 4 years again, just like Scott. It goes fast, and you guys have 4 young kids, Mike and Karen, and trying to balance the whole back and forth. Karen works out at 5, Mike comes in at 6, or vice versa. Respect to both of you guys that as you aged, you actually got in better shape with the demands of life. Being family men, both of you guys both have careers that are pretty demanding. That's something that gets overlooked a lot in terms of what we do, because I do think CrossFit especially is very performance centered. But when you look at the requirements to do this kind of program and how hard it is, Scott and I were just talking about the workout that was, quote, impossible to finish a couple of days ago. It's just you're layering hard on top of hard. Life in what you guys are doing right now. What kept you at Bison? I'm curious. I want to tie this into what we're talking about today. But Scott, what kept you there? Because this is hard. There are different ways to be in shape, right? And
yeah.
We can talk about better shape, worse shape, less injuries, more injuries. But what pulled you into CrossFit? Really, what kept you there?
So what pulled me in was my son. I mean, like I say, he was almost 2. I was just, I turned 40. And I wanted to be able to kind of, when he was 5, 6, and now he's 9, still run around with him. So that was my motivator for doing it. You guys have seen me at the gym. I'm not a competitive athlete, okay? Well, I'm not looking at the whiteboard to see who I'm competing with. I'm just going through my motions to make sure I maintain my fitness. And yes, it's hard, okay? But actually, I look at the easy side of it, okay? So for me, the easy side of it is the programming, okay? Why I never really liked the gym is unless I had a personal trainer, I'd go through the motions here, and then I would do the same things. It was repetitive. Here, the programming's done for you, which is what I love about it. Okay, right? I don't have to think about it. I just turn up. And I know you had a podcast on Dark Week, and I know some people love it, hate it. Okay, I actually sometimes turn up at the gym, and I genuinely don't know what the workout's going to be until I see the whiteboard.
That's so cool.
Because I just, it doesn't matter to me. Okay, right? I'm not looking to compete. Okay, yeah, there's certain movements I can't do. Okay, like if it's muscle ups, I'm not there yet. So I scale it. But yeah, a lot of weeks are dark weeks for me. But that's my motivator. And like I said, I just want to keep fit and I'd love to still be able to play soccer. But I got to a point where every time I would get fit enough to play soccer, I played 2 or 3 games, just, local pickup games, and something would niggle me, and then I'd be out for another couple of weeks. And it just got to the point where I still love it, but it wasn't worth the injuries for me. So I looked for something else, and this was it.
That's a great point, Scott. Thanks for bringing up the workout, the Dark Week. We have one coming up. I think it's going to be after Thanksgiving. So we still have some time. Don't worry, people. But that's a big part of what I loved about having. I am a coach. I am the programmer for Bison, and I've had coaches in the past with competition, and I loved not having to think about it. It's right. A huge asset to have. Just show up and do your thing. Yeah. Mike, what pulled you in? What kept you here?
What pulled us in, I kind of mentioned it earlier, was the Radcliffes. They were the ones who really encouraged us to go in there. But that's what initially got us in. I think what kept us, probably the main thing that kept us, was the competitive aspect of it. That was just really fun. The competitive aspect of it, the kind of the culture of continual improvement. You could always get better. You could always get faster. You could always get, improve on certain workouts. It always seemed like there was some, and like the changing it up was really good for us. And so it really scratched that competitive itch that we had in college. I think the other thing was just the sheer, there was a lot of just great people there. I mean, I don't want to get too much into the story, but the background story of what was going on in Karen and I's life,
right?
When we came into Bison, it was just a place of where we could kind of come and escape from just all we're going through in our lives. You know what that was, and then also the sheer convenience of how close we are. I mean, we are literally, if I want to go to the 5 a.m., I could wake up at 4:55 and like roll out of bed and be in the gym. Like, we're just so close to the gym.
You guys might be the closest people to the gym. If I have to think about it, there's a couple people that are close, but you guys might be the closest.
I've driven past you, I think, when you're mowing your lawn a couple of times on the way to the
But so that's what's great, because Karen and I we could literally, like, there's some people, they live so far away that they can't do back-to-back workouts if they have kids. Like, I could do the 6 and she could do the 6, I could do the 7, because it's that quick. But yeah, so that's what's kept us.
You want to know what's funny? We're always, for our the Bison management, we're always looking for, what's next, new spaces. If we ever have to move, where we're going to go, can we move, blah, blah, blah. Right. We found a spot that we looked at. We looked pretty hard into it. And I was thinking, like, oh man, the fact that it's like an extra 2 miles in this direction, the McKinneys aren't going to be able to work out back to back. It's funny how, like, you think about specific people, you care about their routines. I get it, dude. Like, the routine is everything. Like, if you throw off 5 minutes, if we moved our schedule to just a little bit, it might throw off everything for you guys. So that's a really important part about working out, like those logistics of the location. So I want to get into the story now. And Scott, I'm going to start with you. And Scott, I'm going to read something. All right. CrossFit Open 25.3, 5 wall walks, 50 cal row, 5 wall walks, 25 deadlifts, 5 wall walks, 25 cleans, 5 wall walks, 25 snatches, 5 wall walks, 50 cal row, 20-minute cat. What comes to mind when you see that workout?
The third set of wall walks.
The third set of wall walks.
Because that's where I was when I started to struggle to breathe. I think I completed my second wall walk. I was lying face down on the floor. John was my partner. John Kinney was my partner. He was changing the weights for me. He could see I was out of breath. He said, take 60 seconds. Let me change these weights for you. Then we'll get back to it. And as I said, I'm not a competitive CrossFit athlete. I often don't finish workouts, and I'm fine with that. But I always work to the time cap. And this is the first time I was laying flat on my stomach, and I just wasn't able to kind of continue at all. And for me, it was just a shortness of breath. I just couldn't. It was almost like, something had been punctured in me again. As I tried to take breath in, it was going out as fast as I was taking it in.
Did you know right in that moment what it was? Or
No.
was it you were just, you're in the middle of a workout, crazy thoughts happen in the middle of a workout. When I talk to people, I've been there myself, weird things come to your head in the middle of the workout.
Yeah.
What was the initial, all right, so we stopped, you and John stopped you, whoever stopped you, whatever, you go to the front of the gym. I was actually in class with you.
Yeah.
I remember looking up front and seeing you kind of doubled over at the whiteboard. And honestly, not to make light of it, we see that at the gym all the time.
Right.
People being dramatic on the ground. I'm one of them sometimes, right? Where they're just kind of doubled over and like, hard workout. And I remember thinking, you could feel an urgency in the room. Right. And I've been in that gym so many times as a coach and as an athlete, even though I'm very locked in on what I was doing, there was something different about the feel and just who was standing where. Kathleen Staunton, one of our members and competitors, doctor, she was there. And like, I've seen her being in scenarios like this before, where just how her body language was standing, there was a good shot. Something was a bit more serious than, hey, Scott's tired. So called the ambulance, they come. And at what point did this go to the next level of fear and feelings for you?
Around the time you probably saw me at the whiteboard. Okay. Prior to that, I'll be honest with you, it was embarrassment. You know, I was like, this is pathetic. Okay, right. I know it's a hard workout, but like I'm 2 weeks shy of my 50th birthday, and I was in the box. So I was in lane 11.
Okay.
It's a significant lane for me now. Okay, right. I almost want to. I was going to ask you if I can have a plaque with my name, if I can kind of sponsor that lane, but it's right by the women's bathroom. So I was like, mate, probably not the best idea. But I made the trip to the men's bathroom.
Yep.
And I vomited, and I was the only person in there. And I remember vomiting, thinking, this is pathetic. How can you be this unfit? And I was hoping nobody was going to kind of come in while I was vomiting. Then John did come in to check on me. I said, I'll be out in a minute. I went outside. He brought Coach Mike over, who the first thing he said to me, do you need assistance? Do you need an ambulance? I said, I just need to catch my breath.
Yep.
And even at that point, I was still in denial. I genuinely thought I just needed to catch my breath. And we can go into my family history of with heart at some point, but I should have known better because I do have a history of it in my family. But again, like you said, I was just in denial. Mike walked me outside. I just wanted to get some fresh air. He sat me on one of the Adirondacks chairs, and I kind of like just wanted to be on the floor. So I kind of sat myself on the floor. He brought Kathleen out, who's one of my saviors. And the ironic thing is she wasn't even working out. She was just there for the Open to see friends, support people. Okay, and I think she'd just come from a shift.
She was in her workload. Yep.
Yeah. She literally went back inside and got a stethoscope out and kind of brought it out to me. And then, I then walked back inside. And at that point, I knew it was serious. Brittany L came over to me, and I've subsequently spoken to her, and she said, her aim was to kind of convince me to have them call an ambulance. I remember her kneeling down in front of me and saying, do you need an ambulance? And I said, yes. But at that point, fear started to set in. It was still just because of me. I was still a little bit embarrassed. I didn't want kind of to disturb other people and to have all this commotion going on around me. But at that point, fear started to settle in a little bit.
Yeah. From the perspective of the coach, the owner, we are always overly, I would say, protective or overly aware that if someone is having a hard time breathing and there's any sort of chest pain, it's always, and I think anyone, coach or not, no matter where you are, you'd rather be safe than sorry, to call the ambulance, get a medical professional involved. And that's something we're always talking to our coaches. We're always checking on the AED, God forbid, because we see people tweak a muscle here and there. We see people tweak a back on a deadlift, and you are concerned about that. You do, you want to help them. But this is a different level of just stress.
Yeah. And obviously, we'll get on to Mike in a minute. I know it was a different experience for Mike here, right? But I will say it wasn't, what I expected it to be. Okay, right? I think for me, I'd had my father passed of a heart attack. He'd had heart attacks throughout his life. Okay, the first he had when he was 42 years old. And I've got uncles, and let's say there's a medical history of it in my family. I just expected, the arm to be hurting, pains in my chest, and for me that wasn't the experience. At least at that point, okay, it was really just, and I don't know if it's because I had adrenaline going through me from the workout, but for me it was just a shortness of breath, which again, we often get at CrossFit. Okay, right, so. That was the big thing for me. The big takeaway is that, it's not necessarily always what you expect it's going to be. It's not always dramatic where you get this huge shooting pain through your chest. That's not my experience.
And I'm just glad, man. I'm glad you didn't drive home. I'm glad you didn't say try to tough it out, because we see people try to tough things out all the time. Yeah. And imagine you were too embarrassed or too, what the feelings that you initially felt about that throwing up in the toilet. It's you know what? I just want to get out of here. I want people to see me like this. I'm going to drive home, because that could have been worst case scenario there. So I actually applaud you for having that humility in the moment to let people help you on that.
Yeah. And I know, say what you want about CrossFit and working out, and people have their opinions. I was in the best place for this to happen. A week before I was up a mountain skiing with my son. It could have happened there. It could have happened when I was in a car on my own. I was surrounded by the right people in the right atmosphere, the right time, and everything from my perspective. Okay, if you're going to have it, okay, right, I had it in the right place, so I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. Now, Mike, we were signed up for the Asbury Park Summer Games this past June. You get through the Open, you get through semifinals. Mike, very high level athlete, I'll say it, so he doesn't have to. He finished top 1-2%, made semifinals. And then after semifinals, what do athletes want to do? They want to sign up for something else. So him, myself, the Dakota, sign up for the Asbury Park Summer Games, start putting ourselves through some tough training sessions. What is that how vivid and how foggy are those times that led up to what you went through? And I want you to kind of touch on that and then lead into what happened with you.
Yeah. You mean not the actual one, but kind of leading up to it?
Yeah, like those couple weeks. Yours was a little different story. Yours is kind of, I feel like, a little bit like a runway, almost like a week or two kind of to the climax.
Yeah. So, it was very strange because right before mine happened, I went through some incredibly intense workouts. Was this the semifinal workouts that they did?
Yeah, we did semifinals, and then we did a really hard workout with ring muscle ups, dumbbell snatch, jump rope. I remember we all said that was like when things started to go south for you. I just remember that was a really hard workout. Yeah,
a couple weeks before mine happened, I went through really hard workouts, semifinal workouts, and then I took about a week or so off, came back, and was going to start doing the Asbury game workouts. We did a really hard workout on a Friday morning. It was my first workout after I'd taken a week or so off from the semifinals. And I finished the workout. And then after I was done, I didn't feel it during the workout. I finished the workout, and all of a sudden I started feeling what I thought was just like Fran lung, just the uncomfortable up and down the sternum. And I just thought, I didn't think anything of it because it felt similar to that. The problem is it just didn't go away. It just kind of remained. It literally stayed all day long. And I wouldn't even describe it as pain. It was just discomfort was probably the best word to describe it. It just felt like a low-level cramp in my esophagus area. It didn't go away. I was talking to Karen about it, and it was odd. I kind of laid in my bed a lot of the day because it just made me uncomfortable. It was just something I hadn't experienced before. And Karen and I were talking, and she's a nurse too. And so we were kind of going back and forth. And like you, Scott, we're kind of like, there's no way. I didn't like the heart attack didn't even cross my mind. And I just put it off. I slept on it, woke up the next day, felt fine. The problem is Saturday, Sunday, I had like heart palpitations like I'd never had in my life. I mean, like every 10, 15 minutes, like it was frequent, and it was noticeable. Karen was working all weekend, so I didn't want to like stress her out. So I just didn't say anything. Came back in that Monday, did another workout that was really, really hard workout. Like one of those 70-pound dumbbell workouts. I went in with Karen, and during the workout felt fine. Finished the workout, and the pain came back. Same pain. And Karen asked me, she was like, "Is it there?" I was like, "Yeah, it's there. It's back." I went home, and here's where Kathleen comes in, and she's the savior again. It's so crazy, Kathleen.
MVP of Bison.
Yeah. Because I kind of go to her as a general physician, and she's kind of guided me through like my high cholesterol and meds and stuff like that. Like I reach out to her, and long story short, she was like, "Just go in, just make sure." And my thing was like, I didn't want to go into the hospital to the ER and be there for 4 or 5 hours. It'd be nothing.
Yep.
I was like, don't want to do that.
Yep.
I went in. They rushed me back. They rushed me back in there because if you have chest pain, I guess they kind of you get bumped to the front, which is great. And I'm just waiting there, and they're doing all these tests on me. And long story short, it goes from like super chill to all of a sudden one of their top cardiologists is coming to me, and he's like, "Hey, we got to take you to the operating room right now because we believe there's blockage or something. So they're prepping me, and they just wheel me back to the operating room, and all of a sudden they're putting me under anesthesia. And when they started wheeling me to the room, that's when I started to feel kind of, Scott, you described like some of the fear. It was just kind of like, what is happening? Like what is going on? It was kind of this feeling of like, I'm going to be fine. Cause never at any point was I in a lot of pain. It was just chest discomfort. That's it. But when they're wheeling you to the operating room, yeah, you're kind of like, I'm fine. Am I going to die? But no, I'm totally fine. It was this weird in between that I've never experienced. Anyways, I woke up from the procedure, and the cardiologist, the first thing he says to me is, you had a heart attack. And that was crazy. Went back to the post-op, and Karen and I are sitting there, and we're just like deer in the headlights. Couldn't believe it. But yeah, I too learned also that my grandfather had his first heart attack when he was in his 30s, and multiple after that, died of a heart attack. So I find out that it's a genetic thing for me. So now I'm on the meds and all that kind of stuff. So that's my little roller coaster journey.
So similar stories. The parallels I grabbed from that is that it wasn't what you've seen in movies, the graphic chest, the fall to the ground. Yep. We've had a heart attack at Bison back in 2020. It was one of those heart attacks, on the ground, grasping for air. Tom Couture, who we actually had on season 1, episode 15, he gave his story, and I want to use Tom. Tom's an inspiration to everyone in the gym, whether you've had heart issues or not. Because the guy is still there 4 or 5 days a week to this day, in great shape, wears the heart monitor. He's checking out his heart rate at all times. No issues with scaling, has a new sense of appreciation for working out and training. And he's really healthy right now. His doctors have given him great reports. Every now and then I check in on him with that. When did you guys have this like realization that once you knew you made it out okay, and this was no longer life-threatening, because both of you were in life-threatening situations? Where does your head go in a situation like that, Scott? When, like, to be honest with you, Scott texted me, had his wife text me asking me for his score the night it happened, so that he could submit his score to the CrossFit Games website. So I kind of know where your head's at, but where were you?
So I know you've mentioned this on the pod before, okay, right? And I don't want to. One of my first thoughts was of your wife, okay, right? The first thought I thought was for Team Black, okay, right? And oh my God, Ashley's going to kill me, okay, right? If I don't put my score in. So I said that to my wife, and she was like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Like, are you joking right now?" I said, "No, it's really important. Can you just message him, find out what my score was, so I can?" She was like, "Sure." So that's where my where my immediate thought was. For me as well, no, I never. It was scary, okay, right? For me, I did. So to be clear, I did end up getting these severe chest pains. Okay, thankfully, I was in the ambulance on the way to the hospital.
Right.
There's a lot going on. I remember the paramedic talking to me and telling me what was going to be happening, and he was radioing through, saying we're 10 minutes out, asking me what the pain level was. I kind of said around a 6. He radioed through saying he's at least a 9 or 10, and he's right. His exact words were, he's writhing around in pain. And I think that's the first time I realized, and I was listening to myself, and I realized actually I am moaning in pain, and I was just wasn't even conscious that I was doing it. So fast forward to we're in the hospital. The crazy things that go through your mind. I'd previous to that year, I'd always been on like Team Red or something like that for the workout of the Open. This is the first time I was on Team Black, and I was excited because red's not my color. I had this black T-shirt. I was excited, and then then they cut it off me. I remember sitting there thinking, oh, don't cut the t-shirt, but I couldn't. I had a mask on. I couldn't say anything. The things you think about. So fast forward. So I was never really. I don't know. It never crossed my mind that I was going to die or anything like that at that moment. Okay. But the next day, when I'm in the hospital, I'm recovering. My wife's there. I've got the nurse there, and I had a pain in my chest, which was more like a bruised pain. Okay, right? It wasn't anything internal. Okay, it just felt sore. And I remember saying to my nurse, is this normal? And she said, well, it's probably where they gave you the compressions and when they had to use the paddles on you. And I said, the paddles? And she said, yeah, you flatline for 30 seconds. And it was that was the first time I'd heard that's the first time I realized how serious it was. And you get emotional. Okay. You start thinking about these things and that's when like the mental stuff starts kind of kicking in for me at least. Okay. Right. And then I started, I would get emotional here and there, thinking about it afterwards. But that was the first time I heard or realized how serious it was. Okay. Right. And it was kind of a big, wake up call. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and Mike, you had conversations with your doctor after you had a stent put in, and share, like, you asked the doctor, I remember you telling me the story. It's like, did I almost die? Like, it's like such a wait, what happened? Because I know you show up to the hospital more angry about the fact that it's inconvenient to go there and your schedule. You're a busy guy. This is going to be inconvenience. I don't want to annoy my wife. All this stuff, right? 4 kids, can imagine, right? What goes through your head when you ask that doctor, in that just very blunt way, like, did I almost die? Like, what did he say, and what happened to your mindset after that?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, I just want to say, Scott, I'm very proud of you for putting your score in for the black team, because I was in the black team as well.
You guys are all dressed.
And we won.
We won. That's right. Like you, Scott, I honestly thought they went in there and just had to put a stent in, and maybe I had my heart had a little bit of a heart attack or something. And
right.
But I think it was like 2 or 3 days later, I went and saw my doctor, and he was explaining what happened. And I didn't go in planning to like ask him how serious was this. It just kind of crossed my mind, and it just kind of came out. I was like, how close was I to dying? And he was like, yeah, he said, well, you had an over 50% chance you could have died. So I take that as like 60. All I know is I was closer to dying than not dying.
Wow.
And that's when, for me, like you, Scott, even hearing you describe it, it was kind of like, I remember the emotional. Went out to my car, texted Karen that I was done, and she was like, how'd it go? Was it encouraging? And I just responded, no. No, it was not encouraging. It was very discouraging. I wouldn't even say discouraging. It was just like maybe disorienting might be the best word for it. So that was like on a Wednesday or Thursday. But pretty much the rest of the week, yeah, I was just kind of in a hole, not like a depressed hole, but just kind of like, I mean, ask Karen. I was just like sitting in a chair, and just like staring off into nothing. I can just remember a moment. My kids were in the other room, like watching TV. Karen was at work, and I was just like, was staring out the window, listening to some like super, I don't know, emotional music. and I was looking out the window, and I kind of like teared up a little bit, because I was just like, what does this mean? Yeah, kind of those big life questions.
Yep.
And I'm like, and a lot of most people at the gym know that I'm a pastor.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what's been interesting for me is I'm usually the one telling people talking to people about, life after death and how to handle hard things and suffering and death and all that kind of stuff. And going through something like this myself, it gave me, kind of put me in people's shoes of like, it's not that easy. It's not just like, oh, trust God and everything's gonna be fine,
Right.
Like, no, even the pastor guy is when he gets confronted with death, he has questions and doubts. And so it was a pretty intense week for me after that.
Yeah. No, I can't imagine. And I can't relate to that kind of feeling for so many reasons. And again, it's really hard to organize thoughts, right? You guys are both great family men, and at some point, I think especially men in general, you take pride in being ahead of the household and being the protector and being the one that's Scott worked out so that he could play with his son, and it's just really hard at sometimes to really organize everything into concise thoughts. And your recoveries, you guys met each other on a weighted vest walk in White Rock, New Jersey.
Right, yeah.
To be clear, Mike was wearing the weighted vest, not me.
But Scott, it sounds better if we both say that we have a weighted vest on. So
you were walking your dog,
I was, I was doing a bit of pull and pull with the dog. So yeah,
that's more like unpredicted movement. That prepares you for sports, right? But the recovery is not just physical. It's what you guys are talking about right now. It's mental and it's emotional. It's not just like, all right, I survived, I'm going to go into rehab, right? There's a lot of reflection of like life may never be the exact same again, and good and bad, because I think these kind of experiences make you stronger as people. But your recovery, we don't need to go into the weeds of like what you guys physically had to do to get to where you are now, but where are you guys looking at, where you were last year at this time, and where do you want to be a year from now, 2-3 years from now, and how will your recovery get you there, Scott?
I don't know. Yeah, it's a slow process. Okay, right. In terms of the physical side, I want to get back to. I want to complete all 3 workouts at the Open next year. That's the main aim. So for me, like I said, I was never, I'm not like Mike. Okay, right? I'm not a high level competitive athlete. Okay, right. For me, it was just a case of doing the grind. Okay, right. Feeling better about myself. I'm now working with Kayla and so on the nutritional side. Okay, right. So that's a big change for me. Slow progress. Okay, slow changes, and just kind of showing up. And doing the workout. Dave, we spoke before we kind of came on air a little bit about, until that kind of impossible to finish workout, the workouts prior to that I'd completed, I completed just under the time cap, which to me means I scaled it correctly. Okay, right. And any workout I can complete within a time cap is a great workout for me. So just kind of going through the motions, trusting the coaches, and doing what I need to do. And then on the mental side, I still think about it. I remember the first workout I came back, I didn't want a big fuss. Okay, right. I just signed up for a workout, and I can't remember what the workout was, but I was opposite the lane where it happened, that lane 11. Yep. And I was sat on the floor, putting my shoes on, and I was just totally zoned out. Okay, well, I was just kind of staring at that wall, and somebody came over to talk to me. Nice to see you. Didn't even know they were there. Okay, I was just kind of focused on that wall, kind of in my moment, and then all of a sudden I snapped out of it. But for me, I don't want it to define me. Okay, it's definitely no. It was very serious. I still have people coming up to me saying, "How are you?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good. How are you?" And they're like, "No, how are?" And I kind of forget they're asking me how I am because of that. Okay, not just in general. How are you? So, I want to put it behind me, but also kind of, for me, we had this wall workout, this impossible to finish workout. I actually asked specifically to be in lane 11 because I want to kind of face it head on. Okay, right, and
awesome.
and I see it as a challenge. Okay, and I kind of get over it mentally and move on, and that's where I am. If probably my wife and Mike, you might feel the same. Okay, right. She probably went through more than me. You should probably have a podcast with them on. Okay, right, because they're totally different. Okay, right, but she went through the ringer. I remember when I came up to the room and I saw her, I said, "What are you doing here? You didn't have to come." She was like, "F you." But yeah, so that for me, it's just kind of like, continuing as normal as I can, moving on from it, being very aware of it's, a part of who I am now, part of my story. I take, like you, Mike, I take a number of medications now to kind of prevent this happening again. They've already told me one of my arteries is 50% blocked, and anybody who knows anything about this stuff knows that you can't reverse that. So now it's just a case of managing it and making sure that it doesn't get any worse. And that'll come with a combination of the medications, the workouts, and the nutrition. And I kind of move on.
Yeah. I mean, just before Mike gets into his recovery and where he's headed right now, Scott, the whole, one thing I really do put a lot of thought into, I have since we've started, is the whole, Mike's high level competitor. Like, this is where that vary by degree, not by kind, mantra behind CrossFit, that's why this is truly for everyone. To me, when it comes to high level competitive scores, like that, to me, it's just a separate genre of CrossFit to me. Like, we all kind of do the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of why I love that everyone does everything together, no matter what the goal is of your workout, no matter what your competitive aspirations are or are not. And me, as I love being in a room with people, like, I love working out with both of you, and it's for the same exact reason. And it has nothing to do with your scores, all right? Unless I beat Mike. But really it comes down to why you're there and the appreciation you have for working out and fitness and how hard you actually do work. And the fact that you are pursuing something that motivates me and motivates everyone around you, Scott. Like, I'll tell you what, I think you motivate more people than if we had, a famous games athlete in our gym. Like, those are the people that I think have such a lasting impact. And I think that's why so many people, I mean, my phone was blowing up, still is to this day, asking how Scott is. And I think, the fact that you're in there working out, the fact that you're going into zone 11 and working out so you can take that head on for that mental hurdle, that's as inspirational as any, quote, impressive performance in a workout. And I think that's that's an awesome thing that you shared that, but I also want you to know that from the outside perspective.
And I appreciate that. And you touched on the herd, and I just want to say, I'm appreciative of every message that I got directly, every message that that was relayed through you. I appreciate it. They were great. They kind of helped pull me through, and they were great to me and my family. So
good.
Thank you.
Not done yet, my man.
I know.
Mike, your recovery, again, you could talk about the sports side. You could talk about that, hey, I just want to work outside. You were pretty active over the past few months, and I could tell you were trying to push, but you're a little hesitant, not sure what to do. I can't imagine what mentally goes through your head once things start feeling really difficult. Where are you looking to be a year from now? Do you even look a year down the road, or are you just trying to take it one step at a time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one thing I have had to, I think, say farewell to is kind of the competing again. I think that was something that I did have to say goodbye to, which I was okay with. And I think a lot of my faith, kind of helped me with that.
Yep.
But kind of where I'm at now is, or at least where I want to be, is I would like to be able to go through a workout and not have to be concerned about what's going to happen, with my heart. I think that's kind of been when I first kind of came back in, at least that's how it's been now, is I'm just much more conscious and aware of it, of just how I'm feeling. Whereas before I would just disregard how I felt pretty much.
Yeah.
But now I've been much more, I'm scaling a lot more. I will intentionally take longer breaks between different movements than I normally would.
Right.
Whereas before I would just kind of wait until like, I wasn't like dying so I could do the next thing. Now I actually will like wait enough time to where I feel comfortable, and then I'll kind of move into the next thing as well.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that where I'd like to be probably for a year from now is just be able to work out every day and it to be kind of like a non-issue. I mean, it's probably always going to be in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
Because I still have I did a CT scan or CT angiogram, and there was like a minor buildup in one of my arteries in there, which that was kind of unfortunate, because I guess if like I'm super out of breath and I do like a really heavy, high pressure on the chest lift, something could happen, and so that's something I have to keep in mind as well. But yeah, I think at this point, I would like to get to a place where I'm at a very good level of fitness, not a competitive level, but definitely beating my wife in workouts for sure.
Knew that was going to come in as
yeah. But
that's
yeah,
awesome.
that's kind of where I hope to be.
All right, so I'm going to wrap this up because I know we got to go. We just have about 3-4 minutes left. So if you guys could just kind of quickly share, what is health and fitness to you now? The definition of it has probably changed a little bit. And what has changed about your perspective of health, fitness, even CrossFit in some ways, where, has this brought to light any new thoughts, new perspectives about health, fitness, CrossFit, anything under that umbrella, Scott?
No, I don't think it's brought to any new lights. I think I'm just grateful. I think I've got more of an appreciation for it, for sure. Like I said, any workout I finish, I would regularly come home and my wife Jan would say to me, how's the workout? And my standard answer is terrible. It's terrible. I hate it. And I still have that same reaction. Okay, right. But I have a new appreciation for it. Okay, right. I'm grateful. Yeah, I'm grateful to, everybody says good to see you. And I always say good to be seen. I'm just grateful to be able to kind of still go to classes and take part. Coach Liz and I always have this running thing where she starts every class by saying have fun. I'm like, that's just such a lie. Like no, I don't have fun. I've never had fun. Like stop saying it. But I enjoy the fact that I can turn up. Okay, right. I it's more difficult with my schedule. We spoke, Mike and I are both fathers, family guys, we work. I'm in the city now 3 days a week. So anytime I can kind of get there, I try to get there at least 3 times a week. And, and I just kind of enjoy being there. So, but for me, the biggest change has certainly been the nutrition piece, and I'm trying to change that. It's not that I was I wasn't eating fast food all the time, but certainly there's changes that needed to be made. And Kayla and I are working on that, and I appreciate her for her work on that as well.
Yeah, awesome job, Kay. Mike,
I think one of the things that I have grown in my appreciation of fitness through CrossFit is, I just know that the way that there are other things in my life that are way more important to me than fitness. I know that fitness is a necessary piece in helping me do that the way that I know that I would like to do.
Right.
I mean, fitness the way that it makes me feel throughout the day, and my mental clarity, just how I feel throughout the day physically is totally worth every minute, every ounce of fitness that I do. Yep. And I think the thing that people don't realize about CrossFit is there was someone in the gym. It was I don't want to draw attention. If he doesn't. It was actually Dez's dad. Andrew in the gym, and he was talking about how when he started to work out, how he was out of shape and unfit.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, he just starts like making all these different changes to his health, what he eats, what he drinks, how he sleeps. And there's something kind of like built into CrossFit that like demands all of that. Like you care about your sleep, you care about drinking lots of water, you care about like what food you eat, when you eat, all that kind of stuff. And even like alcohol and drinking, like I'll maybe have like one or two nights a week I might have something. But I'm even having thoughts of like, do I ever have any ever again? I mean, you just think about, is it really worth it? Health-wise, that is.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a necessary piece to do what I know that I'm called to do in my life.
That's awesome, Mike. Yeah. Those are really powerful ways to kind of end up this episode, because I think all of us need these reality checks every now and then. And sometimes we can't obtain them ourselves. We have to listen to people that have been through what you guys have been through. And you guys are both very well spoken, and has really helped us kind of process what happened to you guys, what you're going through, and maybe kind of look inward a little bit and start asking ourselves, not just about the physical side of it, the health, the fitness, but how we approach and how much we appreciate the things that we do have. So I know we got to go. Again, we have jobs, but we do have to go. But I just want to thank you guys on behalf of everyone listening, CrossFit Bison. You guys are, the kind of pillars that our community has always been built on. It always will be built on people like you. And it's not just what you guys went through. It's who you were before, who you were during, and who you guys are after that life-threatening situation. So thank you guys so much. I will talk to you guys soon. Hopefully I'll be training with you guys ASAP, and we'll see you guys next time.
Cool.
Sounds good. Dave. Thanks, Dave.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Herd Fit podcast. Be on the lookout for next week's episode.